And look, I'm not a
Yeah,
plumber.
I guess we're up. We're up. Okay. Juliana, I think we're live here. Thank you so much for doing this Q&A. I mean, again, really timely because, as I said to you before we started, I have my own questions about my own damage in my house following Winter Storm Fern. But, you know, there's so many people like me, not just in Nashville, but all over. You were mentioning a school in New York City that has a burst pipe that even if you didn't lose power just because of the extreme cold, there's been a bunch of damage to people's homes from pipes, and in the case of Nashville, down trees, and then also pipes that have frozen and like absolutely destroyed different systems, like pool systems and stuff like that. But yeah, I've got a bunch of questions that were sent already in from listeners for you about all of that. But you must be inundated with claims and all kinds of stuff.
100%. I mean, it's just such a bummer when people call, and because I have a big one now, and there are, even though New York City, where I currently am, I mean, we do things nationally, but there are pipes bursting because the city is old and these townhouses have old plumbing and it's very expensive. You know, people everywhere just have nice floors, nice sofas. And so I'm dealing with something for more than one person where they didn't have water devices, and unfortunately it's they might have to move out. We'll see. Wow. And just having, you know, the remediation, we've been talking about these giant fans that people get in, and having, I think one of the important things is when you have a good broker, sometimes they will have an infrastructure team where they can say, okay, here are the people to call. And those people will come to your house immediately, and they have the right equipment. They have the fans to dry out. They have the appropriate equipment to bring on a truck to come and immediately start protecting what you have so that your floors aren't getting super damaged. Because the most important thing when this happens is, you need to take care of your house. Like, what are you going to do? Put a bunch of towels down? You know, there's a limit to what you can do. You can shut the water off. I was talking to a woman who owns a house, and she said, I didn't know where the water shut-off valve was. And her daughter went to use a bathroom in the basement and said, Mommy, there's a lot of water in the bathroom. Burst pipe. And so just to know where those shut-off devices are. And hopefully you're home when it happens, because if you're on vacation, it's going to be even worse.
Well, first of all, I should have said at the outset, I should have thanked you for being my first happy hour guest, Juliana. I realized I jumped right in. I didn't give you the shout out on that front. But yeah, so that is one thing, right? Having those monitors in place. But I'm going to rapid fire you some of these questions, because I know our happy hour is just 30 minutes. But in my own particular case, which is not unique to Nashville, and it sounds like to people in New York too, you know, we did turn the taps on dripping. We did have a pipe burst. So I guess when things warmed up, it burst. All the water went into this, like, filtered down from, it was this pipe that went all the way from the second floor down to the basement. But in that room in the basement, we had stored all of our luggage, sort of off-season clothes, boots, all kinds of things. And I immediately we also had to leave the house. Our sitter was here with our dog. She had to go to a hotel for the 5 days we were away, that we didn't have power. And some of my friends said, oh, my insurance is covering our hotel stays. Everyone in Nashville, if you didn't sort of bunk up with someone who had a generator, you were in a hotel. So this one friend said to me, oh yeah, my renter's insurance will cover a hotel up to such a number. So I assumed that was kind of universal. And when I contacted our broker, she said, well, it's not as if the house was uninhabitable. I'm not going to say uninhabitable twice. That. So try saying that 10 times. But she, which was really interesting to me. I thought, gosh, isn't it being 18 degrees out make that home not habitable? So that's my first question to you, is kind of, when you get those sort of questions and kind of pushback, is there a road? Is there a way to navigate that? And I guess to kind of contest the interpretation of what makes something, what would, I guess, be classified as something that would be covered by insurance. In this case, it's the
Yes.
habitable question.
So they're going to say, some carriers are going to say, we're going to look to find a way to pay, right? And that's why those are the carriers that people always are very loyal to. So they're going to say, obviously, if you don't have heat, of course not, right? And not only that, but if something is, and I am exploring that with this client right now, it's if you're with a direct writer, which is some of these larger programs, and I obviously can't mention any specific names,
Right.
but
well, we have Chubb. So Chubb, if you're listening, I would think that now, by the way, we haven't filed a claim yet. So I think you have to file a claim, right? To really find out whether they'll cover you, or can you ask your broker these
correct. So we have a claims team. And so,
okay.
I was just talking with, it's funny. I was just talking with a family that they had a claim actually right before, Winter Storm Fern that was unrelated around their HVAC system. And they probably are going to put in a claim, but I think having advice around it. So like sometimes if there's a small claim that's not a mega claim, we'll say, don't put it in. Fern, big storms like a pipe bursting is what you save insurance for.
Okay.
Not like when you accidentally, did $500 worth of damage or something to, your neighbor's car. That you kind of want to. So
yeah. So with the luggage and stuff that's damaged, it's got some water stains and stuff on it. I guess in that case, learning what I learned from our conversation, and that episode, I'd want to look to see whether, it would be replacement value, right? Or
100%. So you're going to have a claims adjuster come to your house, which I would imagine was already scheduled. And so you should be having an adjuster come to the house and examine the damage. They should have had remediation. If you didn't know a remediation expert, they should have already connected you with a remediation expert as soon as you knew there was a loss. And then they will come and inspect not only the actual house, but as you talked about, the contents, what we discussed about, and say, okay, if you need to replace all of this, go replace it.
Right. And it might be, in my case, it might not be like what it would cost to buy that T. Anthony suitcase today. It might be like, oh, that's an old T. Anthony suitcase with a busted wheel. We'll give you $20 for it. So I
would say that carrier is going to be, look, when you have a contract that's broad, they're going to look to find coverage, and they want, hopefully they want to keep you as a client. And I think, I don't want to talk about any names, but I think they want to replace what you had.
Okay.
Which is a T. Anthony bag, not a something else.
Right.
So you should have it replaced.
I'm using that example because I just went to pack. I'm going to New York tonight on a flight, and I noticed that particularly wet stained suitcase with the broken wheel. Okay. Here's one
highly irritating.
From a listener. What if you own, this is around liability and teenagers or people that are, in your home they don't own the home, they're your children, and they're under 21. What if you own a house in a college town, your child lives there with friends who pay you rent, so the kids pay you rent? Are you, as owners of that house where your child lives with their friends, liable for their behavior, injury, or personal liability?
So, and I did talk to the head of our claims team. Daniel Stotsberg, who is just fantastic. And we talked about this, and indeed, so owners can be held liable depending on the situation. And so to protect themselves, to protect that parent owner, they should make sure that all the students are essentially insured under their own parents' homeowners coverage as a member of that family's household. And this way there'll be layers of protection so that it wouldn't be just your policy. So like if they're misbehaving, so say a renter did something inappropriate in your house, it would be that child's parents' policy that also responds.
Okay.
So if somebody had a bender and a third party got injured, that renter would be named under their parents' policy.
Okay.
And so that policy would respond as well as the homeowner's
And if it's,
policy.
I would assume then if it's a guest going to a party in that house, it would be the owner, their child who's in the house, and then the other kids who are in the house.
Right. And so
Who live in
assuming,
the
right.
house, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And so they are still underage, considered to be under their parents' policies.
Okay. This woman, a friend of mine, asked me this question, who's a listener, and I said, I think you would be liable for that. The look of fear in her eye. I mean, anyway, we know what college kids
It's
do.
kind of terrifying that to send your kids away and think that their behavior is all on you.
But, or not think
right?
that it is on you and then realize it might be on you. Okay. Does owning a home in an LLC protect you from liability?
So it will definitely assist to insulate clients from liability and protect their assets. But unfortunately, there have been cases where courts have been known to pierce the LLC protection. So I would say it helps for sure. And we see it all the time. LLCs, trusts, and what you do is it's an additional insured. And also that technically if there is damage to that asset, that it would be the trust or the LLC, they would write the check out to the LLC. So you'd want to make sure that they're all additional insureds.
Okay. And then this happened all over Nashville. Okay. People's pools either were not connected to their generator, and then the water lines that feed the pool burst. And however they burst, they destroyed people's entire pool systems, which are apparently very expensive to replace. So how does that work? Like, let's say you put in a pool after you've moved in, you have your homeowner's insurance. I would think about your umbrella liability, including your pool, but I wouldn't actually think to insure. I guess this is why you have a broker, Juliana, to ask you these things, right, or that you check in about whether that would be covered. And should someone file a claim, again, hot topic in Nashville right now. So
I bet. So there is no coverage for freezing weight or of ice or snow to certain types of property. So certain elements, like obviously there's a hurricane exclusion or a 2% deductible in some policies or 5% deductible. But there are exclusions in the homeowner's property for property exposed to the elements. And homeowners policies exclude losses resulting from equipment breakdown. So if the generator fails and the pool equipment freezes, there would be no coverage for the damaged equipment.
Wow.
Unfortunately. So probably those are not covered claims because it was due to the elements.
Okay.
It's not like one of the big things I don't want to say we geek out on, we call it a proximate cause of loss. And typically what insurance is for is like something that just happened, it's like boom, like when you think of a car accident or a glass shattering, it's like something that instantly happened. And so if your pool equipment just like suddenly breaks, that's different than if the weight of the snow on it or something fails around Mother Nature.
But what if it's related? This might be the lawyer in me asking these questions, but related actually to the loss of power, which is related to that, to use your example, like the accident, right? Or the glass shattering. So would there be is there nuance or any room for
I'm going to guess it's going to be tough. I would say if the generator fails, that's probably on you, that your generator fails. So, and they are giving you a generator credit, assuming like one of the things we ask is, hey, do you have a backup generator? And people will say yes or no. And then you get a, $500 credit on your insurance policy for that. So, if it doesn't work, then I would imagine that's on you because they are assuming that it does kick in.
Okay.
But, I don't think that equipment, if a generator doesn't work, what would be the proximate cause of that generator not working then? So like, it's sort of one thing sets off the other, sets off the other, sets off the other. And if the first thing is just that it wasn't like tested, kind of like nobody's been testing it, then that's kind of negligence. If it was working and then all of a sudden it stopped working, that might be different. And you could have an attorney argue that. but if it just sort of failed because you didn't really make sure that it went into, that it turned on, and didn't check it regularly, that's on the homeowner.
Okay. All right. This is a hot topic in Nashville now, but also in, anywhere where there's a weather event, hurricanes in Florida or anything. Tree damage, right? Trees that fall. There are thousands of trees down in Nashville. It's, I mean, the people that are going to be buying new condos in Florida, or the people that own the tree services. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it's like everybody's got a sign, everybody's doing tree work, branches are everywhere, trees are everywhere, and it's expensive.
Sure, it's really expensive,
right?
Yeah.
So, does your homeowners cover that? And thoughts about that?
So, homeowners policies typically do cover tree removal from an insured property if the tree just fell on the ground and needs to be removed. So they will provide limited coverage for tree removal. But it's usually like $2,500. It's not really, even if you have 10 trees, it's $2,500. It's not going to be per tree. But then separately from that, if you have landscaping, that's different, and it's typically covered on what we call the named peril. Like, remember when we went through these 10 things, like if it's if an airplane hits your landscaping,
I love the airplane.
If there is, civil commotion, and your landscaping gets damaged. So that kind of thing, then the landscaping would be covered, but it's, and once again, I would sort of refer back to the contract, because some providers would probably find a way to help out there if there was significant damage. They may say, oh, well, that was a significant, we'll call that a tree, versus landscaping. But some carriers might say, no, we're not covering it. But there's not a lot of coverage for it, unfortunately.
Okay. So we have a question here from a listener. It says, we're the ones hosting now friends, holidays, and parties. What liability risks come with that, with hosting events? We covered this a little bit in our episode, but for people that might have missed that, do you want to kind of
I would say, like, what are you concerned about? I would say, we've already discussed that, drinking underage is against the law. Right. And I think there is, so the teenage drinking is still on you. If somebody sneaks into a house, and brings a bottle of whiskey, like if a teenager brings a bottle of whiskey and you're not aware of that, and then they go and drive and get injured, I would say you're probably covered, because it wasn't like you provided the alcohol. You had no idea about it.
Right.
I would say, if you're having workers in your house, there's things that could happen. You and I talked about this already, that in an ideal situation, you're hiring a catering company. So if somebody is going into your basement to get, a couple more bottles of champagne and they trip down the stairs, they should be covered under their company's workers' comp. And so they really shouldn't be suing you because they got injured on your policy. Of course they can, right? If they want to, because it's a nice house. And so that's something that you might want to have an excess liability policy for.
But so I think, right, I think everyone wants to have excess liability, right? Even if
yes.
I think the question becomes the amount, right? So if this, if you were, having a lot of parties, right? If it's like old school, right? And you were like having your parties, your old school parties, you've got like,
you're running as a member of Congress, Leslie for Congress,
right?
And you're having a ton of fundraisers.
Right.
In your house.
Like, or you've got, you have a lot of events at your home, because you gave me examples of like, a caterer or a valet parker, or, people, that attend the event suing the host because of damage to their car or because a caterer said
Right. So
something
anybody, right, that's right. Anybody
untoward or
working in
whatever.
that house, that's right.
Yeah.
Anybody working in the house could get hurt.
Right.
They could do damage to a guest or do something, right? They could take jewelry, right? So you don't know. You're downstairs entertaining people. Who's sneaking up into your bedroom, going through your bed? You're looking for jewelry. You've got
Right.
500 people in your house, and that can also happen. Suddenly you go up and they say, this is missing or that's missing. So one of the things that some of the broader insurance carriers will cover is mysterious disappearance on jewelry, where you can say, this is no longer here. I can't say that I didn't specifically lose it, but this ring is missing and I know it was here last week. And that's, I think, really nice, because I think as women, we've all had times where we go, oh my gosh, like, where did that go?
Yeah.
Right? You've had a really nice piece of jewelry. And so they cover that. And sometimes people if you're having a lot of people in your home, they're going to go after checkbooks. They're going to, all those things.
Okay. So first of all, you need to know who you're having over, because if you're having people over that are going to sue you because the valet, the kid who parked the car, you got a fender bender, or that you think might be, have sticky fingers and grab your checkbook, you probably, but you want to plan for those things. And that would be something, this is again, going back to our episode and conversation. This is where you really want to make sure that you have a good broker, right? Navigating and asking you the questions about how often are you having parties, what kind of parties, strangers in your house, people that you know, all that stuff. We've got another one here about, I don't think I own anything of particular great value, but I do have jewelry and tech and some meaningful items. When does separate coverage make sense?
I would say it makes sense all the time, because you really don't have jewelry. So I say, tell me what you have. And by the way, there's different ways to cover this, and it's not a person's job to know how to cover things. We say, tell us what you have. And I have like a bunch of art, like maybe $40,000 worth of art. Okay. Is any one piece like more than $25,000? No. Okay. So then we put together a blanket, but then with blanket art or blanket jewelry, there are certain limits with different carriers. They might say you can't have, I've done, I think, you can do $1 million blanket with no one item more than $250,000. And these are all kind of negotiable with the carriers, where you say, hey, they have this kind of stuff. And so it's, if you have a bunch of little pieces of jewelry, you can get a $10,000 blanket with no one item more than $10,000. And that way it covers what's interesting about that. And I know a little, like pearls have gone way down in value. Diamonds have gone way down in value. So it used to be that people would say, well, I bought this piece of jewelry for $5,000. It's now $15,000. Well, when you blanket something, and now I'm getting a little granular, you don't have this sort of 150% replacement inflation guard. When you schedule an item, which we typically do for sort of like hot emerging artists. So like say you buy not a Warhol, but say you buy a piece of art that's, for $100,000. If at some point you think it's going to go up, and you schedule it, you can get up to $150,000 for that item, which is nice because some of this stuff can go up very, very fast. But I think, and I do pay attention to that, because I think where our economy is right now, people aren't running out to buy watches. Gold hit kind of some highs recently. So we're not, because of that, we're not seeing as much, I would say, inflation in the art market and the jewelry markets right now. But I still think if you lost something, and I've lost things, and the first thing you want to do is replace it. And so make sure that you have something to replace it, right? And so with a blanket, it doesn't mean you insure every single piece. When you have a blanket jewelry policy, you're insuring most of your stuff. But it's also like, if I have $100,000 of jewelry, I can actually just insure, but no one item is more than $10,000. I can have a $50,000 blanket with no item more than $25,000. And that's a way that actually it's more effective, cost effective, because you're taking this idea of self-insurance kind of in, unless you lose everything together, which is highly unlikely, right? It covers, it takes a little bit of sort of, it's more cost effective. I did say to a client once, I said, so you have 20 watches, they're worth about $1 million. You don't ever like travel with them all together, do you? Because I can blanket these unless they're all together at one time. And this man said, as a matter of fact, when I travel to Miami, I take the entire watch collection, like watch,
Wow.
and I put it in my bag. And I said, okay, well, in that case, we're not going to blanket them. So, you kind of get to know
nuclear codes. Who
questions.
wants to have the stress of carrying $1 million worth of watches? But
right. Some people live very fabulous lives, and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of jewelry, and they wear them like, oh, I'm wearing this outfit, so I'll put on these $25,000 earrings tonight, or I'll switch my watch up. And look, not everybody lives that way.
Kanye or something, but I know
right.
you can't divulge that. But wait, did you see this? We have another question here related, and I'm mindful of the time here. Do you need to file a police report if something like jewelry goes missing?
Yes, you do need to file a police report. And even if it's not stolen, you just need to find a police report. And if you want to get an appraisal, the insurance carriers will require an appraisal within 3 years, because you can't just say, and that's a little bit to protect the fraud, you can't just say, I have a $250,000 blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's missing, and now I need to check, right? They're not idiots. So you do have to have an appraisal, which is proof that this item exists, right? And that it really is worth as much as you say it is worth, from an appraised, like a decent appraiser. And so it's our job to know. We work with a bunch of appraisers all over the United States, so that, and also people who can appraise stuff like, something specific, like if this is an antique sculpture of an Indian goddess and it's not, or it's jewelry, or it's glass, antique glassware. It's important to have a person that is an expert in that field so that they can give you a proper appraisal, because it is an asset on your balance sheet. And if your grandma's $50,000, little whatever it is, what do they have? Those little figurines that people used to say went for all that money. If you're like, oh, I have that and it's worth a lot of money, it's going to really make you sick if something is stolen or breaks.
So in addition to getting them appraised, a tip that I got, I think from you or someone, about, let's say, for example, the winter storm fern, I was talking to friends who left their house, right? They went someplace else because it was freezing, but they took video of rooms just to remember what you have if there is like massive water damage, or you're about to have a hurricane, or something to, I was thinking sort of along the lines of the comment that you made about the importance of the appraisal, the importance of remembering what's actually there, right? And the contents of what you need to replace.
And I would say, like, when people come into your house, when they do the home appraisal, it's important, but that only happens really at the moment that you get a new insurance carrier. So they're not going to know if you moved things into a different room, or if you repainted or got, fancy hand painted, blah, 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 blah done. So those photographs or video can be really, really helpful. Oh yeah, we did have that painting there.
Right.
Somebody asked if hardscapes in your garden is covered in a policy. And I would say they're covered in other structures. So like if you have special stones around a pool. So yes, but we look when we insure, we can see the house on things like Zillow, and then somebody goes and inspects the house. And I remember sometimes I go on those inspections to see what they talk about, because it's important that, and then they say, yes, this home, Juliana, you said it was about $2.5 million to rebuild. Actually, it's 3.5 because our people went to visit it. But usually we try and we're usually pretty close. And then they'll say, based on this and this and this, based on the decorative garden gate, we think it's actually this to replace. But the carrier will go and take a lot of photographs so that they have things on record as well.
And so that's important too, though, for you, the homeowner, if you did buy some decorative garden gate that's an antique piece or I just had a friend who got a new door and she had it sent from India, and anyway, and you wouldn't know that. I mean, you could maybe tell if you knew that was from India, but she could have got it from somewhere else, or so just being very forthcoming about where you're buying something from, taking a picture of it, all that stuff. I think is important to relay to your broker if you bought it new, or when you are, and it's important to you, or it's of great value, or when they come to do the walkthrough.
I love that you say it's important to you, because I think I say, like, is there anything that you really like, you have a passion around, whether it's antique, whether it's a collection of guitars, whether it's, like a football, I don't know, like Babe Ruth's, framed something. These are all really meaningful things for people, or the store from India. It's to get people talking, and not all carriers will go on site. The sort of high level ones will, but if you have a carrier that's not, they may not visit your house, and so they'll never know what you have. And so it is important to revisit the rebuild cost, because some people, if they haven't taken a look at their insurance, and this happened in California, it says, oh, I have this insurance and it covers my house. But unfortunately, when there's a weather event, the cost to rebuild in that neighborhood and the labor to rebuild in that neighborhood typically escalate. And so you may lose a house, and then suddenly you need to rebuild it, and it's $1.5 million, and your policy only says $1 million,
Right.
And you also don't have a cash out option. And so a lot of people complain lately about the rebuild costs, because sometimes they go, there's no way my house would cost that much to rebuild. We understand that, but there's a lot of good reasons why the cost to rebuild, and some of these carriers either overestimate it, or if they haven't come to your house, it's severely underestimated.
Right. Well, that's, I think, a big issue too in Florida, with real estate values having gone up with people moving there, and and then these towns are assessing people for their taxes based on the value of today, or just the inflation with raw materials, or when we had kind of the some of when Trump, we had some issues with trade, and the tariffs, that was also affecting the prices of building houses too. But all right, this is my first happy hour. I know you ordered Chinese food, Juliana. I'm not keeping you from your takeout order. And I appreciate you coming on so much. I mean, someone's like, Mom, we've got, mushu pork and whatever else is going on. And the people that are
Sorry about that. Yeah.
If you have other questions, email them to me. I'm happy to connect you with Juliana. And Juliana, thank you so much for not only, taking the time to be on the podcast initially, being my inaugural happy hour with Duologue. And it was really great. It was great to see you, really fun to catch up. And I'm so happy and grateful to you for answering all of the questions that our listeners had. So thanks a ton.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I had a great time. And if anybody has any questions, definitely reach out. There's no, I think it's not, I think it's fine to have transparency in this process. And it's okay to take risks, but know what risks you're taking. So, it's okay not to buy flood, but know that you're not buying flood.
Right.
It's okay not to insure your wedding band or your, engagement, but know that it's not insured.
Right.
So that you don't have something and then say, oh, I really regret I didn't do this.
Yeah. Well, I'll think about it the next time I bring my 20 watches, to Miami, whether or not I'm going to insure them all or just one. Yeah.
On your private plane.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, most people, they just want to know what they have and what they're paying for, and they want transparency. And I think that's a really fair point. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Well,
for
I'm gonna have to
providing
come
that.
down to Nashville.
Yep.
And
There's a lot of people here who need help. I would tell you that. And I'm sure will want to be switching their, their broker and carrier. I might be one of them. So anyway, but Juliana,
right.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. Take care.
Take
Thanks
care.
everybody for
You're the
joining.
best,
You joined. We
Leslie.
appreciate it.
Good luck in that house. I hope the repairs go smoothly.
Oh, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Here we go.